Hey Eagle fans, I'm Thomas Mott. Welcome into Philadelphia Eagles Now. You probably know by now, we did a video on it yesterday. Doug Pederson is out. He is done. He's been fired as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. And naturally, we're going to come on here and give you guys my top 10 candidates to go ahead and replace Doug Pederson as the next head coach. I did not expect to be doing this video. I really thought Doug Pederson was safe based on a report from Adam Schefter just a week ago, and yet here we are doing this video talking about who could possibly replace Doug Pederson. It's an interesting list. It's a long list. We'll dive right into it, of course, here. But first, I want to just go ahead and just emphasize again, the Eagles are in an interesting spot right now. One of 7 teams without a head coach. They got to go ahead and kind of add their name to the list of a lot of potential candidates who maybe want to go to Philadelphia and maybe don't. I mean, listen, the Eagles have now set this kind of precedent where you can win a Super Bowl, make the playoffs 3 straight years, and yet go 4-11-1, beef with the front office a little bit in terms of internal coaching hires at offensive coordinator with Press Taylor, and then eventually get fired, as we've seen Doug Pederson obviously have that happen yesterday when he met with Jeffrey Lurie on Monday down in Florida, just trying to go over and figure things out going forward here in the future. My final thought on this, and at the end I did a video on this just yesterday in terms of my instant reactions. I had a night to sleep on it and think about it. The Eagles must have somebody in mind. They must have a candidate they really, really like because they're so late in the head coaching candidacy search as the Lions are getting underway. Obviously, the Jets have had multiple interviews. The Jaguars, keen on Urban Meyer. It feels like the Eagles are behind, and so I think they got to have somebody they really like and are just trying to go ahead and finalize that, and maybe he's one of the candidates we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. Okay, pin comment down below. Without seeing my list, who is your number 1 candidate for the Eagles to go ahead and hire? Who should they hire as their next head coach? Let me know right now down below in the comment section. All right, so let's go ahead and just jump into the list right now of the candidates. Starting at 10, working my way up to 1. Again, I think the candidate and the coach is going to come from my list of 10 here. I could be wrong. There could be somebody else I'm overlooking, but I think these 10 are the most likely. We'll start with the least likely and work our way up, starting with Robert Saleh here at number 10. He's probably one of the hottest names right now in 2020 to be the next head coach. He's had multiple interviews at multiple places. I read a report today saying he's in the 2nd round of the Jets head coaching job. Once a favorite for the Lions as well. He's from Detroit. And so, one, it looks like the Eagles aren't even have a chance to go ahead and interview him, even though they've submitted a request to interview him as of this morning, according to a report from ESPN's Adam Schefter. However, the Eagles just have not really been a defensive-minded head coach, at least the organization in the past. Jeffrey Lurie has hired guys like Andy Reid and Chip Kelly from the college ranks, and of course Doug Pederson, all offensive-minded guys. Not saying they would not at all consider a defensive-minded guy, but it looks like they're kind of more of an offensive-minded thing. And listen, I think Philadelphia should 100% go for an offensive-minded head coach. It's an offensive league. The league is dominated right now by young quarterbacks and young offensive-minded head coaches who are geared toward this new style of motion before the snap offenses that we see successful, and not just in places like Tennessee and in Baltimore and in Kansas City, but also the Buffalo, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. So I'm not high on Saleh, but he does make the list because the Eagles are going to go ahead and request to interview him based on knowledge we learned today. Number 9, your one former head coach, I think, that makes this list, because you got to give them at least one, is Jim Caldwell. He, of course, be the most experienced head coach to go ahead and make the list. 7 seasons as an NFL head coach, 62-50 in his overall record. Really good with Indy, and actually kind of revitalized Detroit for the last 10 years, the best 3 years Detroit has had. Again, by my lifetime, at least the past 10 years. And 4 times as a head coach, he's had a top 10 passing offense, so he knows what to do in terms of revitalizing or at least building an offense around a singular quarterback. Remember, Matt Stafford really kind of came into his own under the Jim Caldwell reign and the Jim Caldwell offense. Look at 2015, for instance, 42 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. I mean, he was really, really good for this 4-season stretch under Jim Caldwell. He spoke very highly of Jim Caldwell, and I think Caldwell would make a lot of sense. To me, he's not my top choice just because he's a little bit older at this point. I think his offense can be a little bit, older in terms of the offensive style from a passing game perspective, but he does have a great respect in the National Football League. He had a great overall, camaraderie with a lot of his players and coaches in both the Colts and the Lions, so he has to make the list here. I think the Eagles might at least consider him as a potential candidate if they wanted to go for somebody with former head coaching experience. Number 8 is going to be controversial because this is like number 1 on a lot of people's lists, but he's not high on my list, and that is Duce Staley, the current assistant head coach and running backs coach on Philadelphia. Obviously, the former Eagle. He's been on the staff since 2011, and apparently Jeffrey Lurie said yesterday yesterday in his press conference after firing Doug Pederson that Duce Staley will be considered for the head coaching job. Multiple players, including Roddy McLeod, have already voiced their support for Duce Staley, so he's a big-time internal fan. I just don't think he's a candidate that I would like to go ahead and give the reins over of my football team. Yes, do the players love him? Yes. Do I want him to stay as a assistant coach on the Eagles? 100%. But a head coaching jump is a massive jump overall, and I want somebody who is, I think, a little more well-versed in an offensive play calling, not just a running backs head coach. Not saying that Duce Staley wouldn't be able to. I'm just less high on a guy who I think has not called plays from an offensive level, who has not kind of schemed stuff from an offensive coordinator position, and doesn't have really any head coaching, obviously, or even coordinator, besides being the running backs coach, experience at all. I think the Eagles will obviously interview him. I think he's probably a lot higher on the list than I have him here, but he's not as high as I think he should be, or he is too high on other people's lists, and that's why he's not as high on my list overall. But I'll let you guys answer the question here. Would you want Duce Staley as the next head coach of the Eagles? Type Y down below for yes, type N down below for no. The inexperience is what kind of turns me off here from a Duce Staley perspective. But again, very highly loved by a lot of the players currently on the roster. If you want to win back the locker room, maybe Staley is the right hire. Number 7 on my list is the current Colts offensive coordinator. He's been there since 2018. That's Nick Sirianni. He also spent time in Kansas City working for Andy Reid. So you get the Andy Reid coaching tree, the Frank Reich coaching tree, and you can see how Jeffrey Lurie would love to go ahead and hire somebody with that sort of pedigree. To me, not experienced enough to be higher up on this list. However, he will be a semi-popular name right now, again, due to the coaching tree, the fact that he is young, and the fact that he is a good offensive coordinator, a modern offensive coordinator here in the National Football League. Philadelphia's going to have a hard time, I think, going after some of the bigger name guys we'll talk about a little bit later on here in this video. So they wanted to hire somebody with the right pedigree and the right history, who also is not getting multiple offers from different spots. Sirianni, to me, makes a lot of sense there at number 7. Also, quickly, make sure you guys are subscribed, because as you guys saw yesterday, we broke down the Pederson firing literally hours after. I mean, it's like minutes. I was in here filming and getting ready at the video, my reaction to Doug Pederson being fired. That's what we do here on the channel. So whenever they hire a new head coach, and it could be soon, we're going to break it down here on Philadelphia Eagles Now. So again, make sure you guys are subscribed. Hit the big red subscribe button down below. Okay, the next 6 here, I'd say the top 6, are all guys that I think would make a lot of sense, and I would love for the Philadelphia Eagles to go ahead and hire. Starting at number 6 with Joe Brady, the current Panthers offensive coordinator, probably the youngest guy on this list, and one of the more rising stars from the offensive coordinator perspective in the National Football League. You know him as the passing game coordinator at LSU, and was probably the offensive genius behind the Joe Burrow, onslaught of LSU. They were an absolute juggernaut from an offensive perspective, and Brady was supposed to be the mastermind and the reason why he was hired so quickly from his LSU position to go ahead and be an offensive coordinator in the National Football League under Matt Rule's staff in Carolina. Again, 31, very young. You can grow, you can mold him, and I think he would jump at any sort of head coaching gig he possibly could have. A little risky because, again, not a lot of experience. LSU had a lot of talent, so you wonder if talent kind of, circumvented his ability as a head coach and kind of plugged some of the holes that he had as an offensive coordinator. But he did do a decent job with Carolina with basically no weapons and a bad quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. They were 17th overall in total offense in the National Football League. Number 5 here is Mike Kafka. You've probably seen it on Twitter. The Eagles are reportedly interested in Mike Kafka. You wonder who he is. Another up-and-coming former quarterback in the National Football League. He was a backup in Philadelphia. You probably remember him, years ago. But at 33, he's one of those guys who's being groomed underneath Kansas City to be the next potentially offensive coordinator if Eric Bieneimy is hired by someone, which he probably will be over here in the next couple of days and weeks. And so you think Kafka, again, gets the Andy Reid coaching tree, gets that kind of Patrick Mahomes offense. He's been worked a lot with Patrick Mahomes over the past couple of years. And even if he is supposed to become the next OC if Eric Bieneimy leaves, if the Eagles offer him a head coaching gig, then you go, okay, well, obviously I'll take that over being an OC. The issue here, as we'll talk about a little bit later, is that even though the Eagles like Kafka, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for you to go out and basically hire Doug Pederson again. That's what you're getting in Mike Kafka, former backup quarterback in Philadelphia, now an Andy Reid disciple who's learning under the Andy Reid coaching tree. Why not just keep Doug Pederson? You're just going to go out and just Control-C, Control-V, a younger version? I guess it's weird, though. It's weird how this is all going to go ahead, play, and work out. Okay, before I get into my final 4, I want to go ahead and give you guys, of course, a quick look at our sponsor for today's video and my go-to place for betting on all things sports, including, as I did, the wild card round, and now in the divisional rounds, our friends at BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/EaglesBet. Use that promo code Eagles125 for a 125% deposit bonus whenever you go ahead and first sign up. Right now, the odds are in Eric Bieniemy's favor, Lincoln Riley's favor as well. We'll talk more about them here a little bit later on in this video. If you guys want to bet on who will be the next head coach of the Eagles, go ahead and get your bets in right now. You look at a guy like Joe Brady. It's kind of a value pick, plus 600 to become the Eagles head coach. He's 6 on my list here, and he falls to number 5 on BetUS's odds. Go ahead and get your bets in for the next Eagles head coach and do it with our friends at BetUS. Any sort of questions, you can always email us, eagles@chatsports.com. And obviously, if you want to send us your picks here on who it is, we want to know what you guys are thinking. Email us again, eagles@chatsports.com. Number 4, one of my favorites here, who is the candidate that I think is going to be for sure hired by somebody in the coming days and weeks. It's Arthur Smith, current Tennessee Titans play caller, just finished up his 2nd season as the OC in Tennessee, and really is the guy who fixed Ryan Tannehill, a former first-round quarterback in the NFL draft, a backup bouncing around from team to team, and yet Tannehill has been one of the better quarterbacks in the AFC over the past couple of years. They had a 10-point lead in the AFC title game against Kansas City just a year ago. Could Arthur Smith be a hire that could go ahead and fix Carson Wentz? That's kind of the thought process here right now. But even if he wanted to go with Jalen Hurts, the offense of Tennessee, a little bit more run first, but still great wide receivers on the outside. I like the mold that Smith has built in Tennessee. I think he makes a ton of sense overall for Philadelphia. Give me your dream hire right now. I asked who you think the Eagles are going to hire. What's your dream head coaching hire down below in the comment section? My dream hire is coming a little bit later on in the video, so stay tuned for that. But I want your dream hire down below right now. All right, top 3 here. Brian Daboll, big fan of Brian Daboll. Not getting a lot of love nationally, but I'm telling you, inside coaching trees and inside coaching, or just say NFL organizations as a whole, Daboll is an absolute I think, favorite right now to get hired somewhere, if not this year, then next year. He's the current offensive coordinator in Buffalo, and it's really been the reason that Josh Allen went from being a nobody quarterback and possibly a bust in the first round to being potential MVP of the league. I mean, he was Bama's OC in 2017 when Hurts was the quarterback. Get the connection there, and I think overall, he's a great offensive mind that is deserving of a head coaching spot, and I honestly, him, Arthur Smith, both of them make a ton of sense. Look at the jump for Josh Allen. I mean, 10 touchdowns in his rookie year to this year, 37 2 years later, an absolute monster right now at the quarterback spot. If you want to go with someone who can groom a quarterback, whether it's Wentz or Jalen Hurts, I think Brian Daboll makes a ton of sense. If nobody hires him this year, I will be shocked. If I'm Philadelphia, I'm interviewing Brian Daboll for sure. Number 2, the name that everyone probably wants right now for their specific, team that needs a head coaching candidate, it's Eric Bieneimy. You know this guy. You know this name. He was supposed to be head coach last year. He was not. He's the current offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's interviewed for basically every job except Houston right now. It's one of the reasons why Deshaun Watson wants a trade, because they didn't interview Eric Bieneimy. I mean, Andy Reid has vouched for this guy. It's all but written in pen that Bieneimy is going to be hired somewhere. And so you kind of go, well, listen, Doug Pederson, the former OC of the Kansas City Chiefs, why not Eric Bieneimy, the current OC of the Kansas City Chiefs? I'm all for this. I mean, obviously, the chief offense with Bieneimy has been, first, fourth, and first in the past couple of years. Obviously, very, very good. My two concerns here, again, are we just hiring Doug Pederson again? Like, we just keep Doug Pederson instead of just, letting him go and then hiring him again. And 2, Bieneimy has only been in an offense with Patrick Mahomes and a ton of talent around him. And so the question is, can he reproduce that talent, or I should say reproduce those numbers with lesser talent, as Philadelphia obviously has a lot less talent offensively than the current state of the Kansas City Chiefs. I like Bieneimy, though. I think he should be, if not 2 on this list, 1 for sure. Drop a like right now if you guys agree and you want Eric Bieneimy to go ahead and be the head coach, or the future head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, let's go to number 1. Are you ready? My dream head coaching hire. I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but I'm putting him number 1 on the list because I think Lincoln Riley and the Eagles make a ton of sense. Let me explain. A lot of people might not like this. First off, it was reported yesterday the Eagles have already called. Yes, they've already reached out to Lincoln Riley about the head coaching position. This is a relationship that has been brewing for the past couple of years. The front office, Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, are in contact with Riley every single offseason talking about the NFL draft, and they love the guy. They absolutely love Lincoln Riley. And he currently, is one of the best head coaches in college football, and so you wonder, would he actually leave Oklahoma? But you get the Jalen Hurts connection. You get, obviously, if you even go back to Jalen Hurts being drafted, the fact that the reason why the Eagles got Jalen Reagor and Jalen Hurts are because they called Lincoln Riley, and Lincoln Riley vouched for both of them, and they love and respect him. I think people are going to be a little bit scared to go ahead and do kind of a Chip Kelly rehire, although they're completely different in terms of their overall offensive scheme. But I could go ahead and get behind Lincoln Riley. I think you can kind of think back to Chip Kelly and be a little worried, but then you kind of go full circle and go Lincoln Riley, a completely different guy. He's not going to come in here and completely change the offense. We're not going to go Chip Kelly, fast-paced spread where the Eagles were just, lightning in a bottle some plays and then 3-and-out on other plays. I think Riley brings a young offensive mind, kind of like what Sean McVay was able to do. The question, again, would he leave Oklahoma? I mean, that's a whole different question, but this is kind of one of the better offers he's going to have. If he wants to be a head coach, Philadelphia would make him a head coach, I believe, today if he wants the gig, and so we'll keep an eye on this over the coming days and weeks. Obviously, we know the tenure at Oklahoma. He's been fantastic, 12-2 each of the last 3 years. Besides this year, he went 9-2, even with a much, I think, less exciting offense and a less exciting quarterback, but the Jalen Hurts connection there to me is one of the more interesting draws here. Riley has raved about Jalen Hurts, and if he has a chance to coach him at the next level, kind of like Cliff Kingsbury, who wanted Kyler Murray back at Texas A&M or Texas Tech and then was unable to go ahead and recruit him, you get a similar thing, except for the fact that Hurts has actually played with Lincoln Riley and they know and understand each other. This is, I think, should be number one. If it's not one, it's at least inside the top three, and the fact that this has been already reported, the Eagles being interested, to me, is why he's number one here on the list. Final question, again, if you haven't got your answers in, give me your answers down below. Who should the Eagles hire as their next head coach? Let me know right now down below in the comments section. But there you go. There are 10 candidates. I think it's going to be one of the 10. If it's not somebody on this list, I don't know who it is. I'll be absolutely shocked if it's not one of the names currently here on the list. If it's some other no-name guy I haven't heard of, then I'll take the blame for it. But I'm telling you, the list here is strong. The candidates are strong, and I can see a case for all 10 here on Philadelphia Eagles. Now, again, I want to jump on here, break this down. We'll have the news as soon as it breaks, obviously in the coming days and weeks, so stay tuned for that. Well, that's all we have for today here on Philadelphia Eagles Now. I'm your host, Thomas Mott, signing off for the rest of your day.